I'm considered the finest marksman in the world.
The mic is off.
Yeah. I am also proficient in hand-to-hand combat.
How many more of these do we have today?
Is that popcorn still here?
Love popcorn.
James, it is a pleasure to get to see and talk with you again. At Comic-Con, I got to interview the cast of Peacemaker, and John Cena seemed very excited to talk about the little snippet we get in the trailer of Peacemaker versus Peacemaker. So can you tell us how it was like shooting a scene like that?
You know, it takes a lot of planning because a lot of times when you see scenes shot with two people, it's all very, still, solid, just very kind of bland actually. And the style of Peacemaker is handheld, it's crazy, there's a lot of camera movement in the fight scenes. And so I didn't want to, have to sacrifice any of that. I wanted to shoot it just like any other Peacemaker action sequence, only we're using the same actor twice. So it took a lot of planning, and between me and Sam, the DP, and the fight choreographers, Hank and Dave.
Yeah, we've come a long way since the Van Damme movie Double Impact. Love that movie, but the person fighting the same person, technology's improved a little bit.
It's a little bit better, yeah.
So speaking of technology, the quantum unfolding chamber, I love the concept of this because of the possibility it provides for Peacemaker, hell, for the whole DCU. So can you tell us what might be in store for our favorite characters now that we have something like this that could take us to other dimensions?
Yeah, I mean, we already have it, obviously, because Lex Luthor invented it with Sidney Happerson for Superman. That was a very imperfect version of it. As you said, it would break down, and Lex was perhaps going to destroy the whole universe by creating this technology. This is a much more perfected, version of that technology. And so I think, it's going to affect everything in the future of the DCU. It isn't so much about a multiverse. It really is about dimensional travel, which is much different.
I like that you mentioned that separation. I imagine for a creator like yourself, when you have access to something like this, do you have to stop your brain from just all these popcorn kernels of ideas going off all the time now that you have access to something like that?
I never have to stop my brain. It just does what it wants.
If we look at Peacemaker Season 2, how much of that is like you wanting to tell this story with these characters? And then how much of that is also you feeling like, okay, well, let's also set some stuff up for future DCU projects down the road? Is it like focus on the story, then step back and say, okay, what seeds can we plant in here?
I think it's more than seeds. I think that there's a bigger overall story we're telling that is true with Peacemaker and with Supergirl and with Superman, that they're connected in certain ways that maybe some of the other stories aren't quite as much. And Lanterns, even. So it's like they're all a part of a bigger story. So it is all storytelling, it's just what's fun. I think the thing that for me that I am very cognizant of is still making it so that somebody can come in, watch episode 1 of Peacemaker, not have seen Peacemaker season 1, not having seen Superman, and they can still really enjoy the show. That's my litmus test. But it is connected to this bigger story, and where this season goes is incredibly important to the DCU in general and where we're going.
So I want to ask you about Tim Meadows, because he was the one person I didn't get a chance to speak to about season 2 yet. And I know that there's a fair amount of improv, particularly with like some post-credit scenes that happens on set. Can you tell us about a time or something that Tim Meadows just made you crack up, or just kind of was Tim Meadows on set?
First of all, there hasn't been a ton of improv this season, I gotta say. We had way more the first season, way more. And I think a lot of it has to do with the nature of John's character, of Christopher Smith's character. He's just a much less blustery character. And so that shows up in John's performance.
There's some actor, I don't know if you've heard of, named Michael Rooker, who shows up in season 2. How does that go between you and him when you have this character you want him to play and you're calling him, you pitch him? Is he just like, hey, just tell me when to show up because you guys have that relationship? Or did you have to sell him a little bit? What was that like?
He did me a favor, to be honest with you. So we cast and had shot with someone else in that role who was a very good actor and a very nice guy. And it just didn't work for some reason. And it happens occasionally that it just didn't work. And so we reshot those scenes, and I reshot those scenes with Rooker, and I asked him to do me a favor and come in, because we didn't have enough money to pay him his exorbitant millions of dollars that he gets paid for like Righteous Gemstones, and he had to come in and do it on the sly for me, and so he did me a favor.
Frank Grillo was great to talk to because he's sort of like the connective tissue in the new DCU so far. So is that like, you look at Frank Grillo and you're like, oh, that's the guy, or is it just, it happens and hey, he's pretty good at being in everything that we want him to be in?
I think I mostly knew that he was going to be in all three of these things. From the time I first talked with him, I didn't tell him that because you don't want to overpromise something, but I've always thought that Frank would be, connective tissue. But, listen, Economos is in a lot of things, and it's, there's all sorts of different connective tissue that we have. Peacemaker is in everything. He's in Superman and he's in Creature Commandos, so.
And he was or was not the best dancer on set, just to clear up some confusion.
Frank Grillo? Terrible. He's terrible.
You heard it from the man himself.
Terrible. There's this season was much more challenging because of our many terrible dancers we had. And Grillo is probably the worst. But Michael Rooker and Tim Meadows are definitely trying to take that spot. Robert Patrick worked much better. He worked hard. He was embarrassed for his poor performance in the first season, and now he wanted to come back and prove that he could dance with the best of them. And so he has moved up to slightly less than mediocre.